All right, so super raw video here. I want to see if I can quickly create a program that will not only download, parse, and store all of the investment advisor firm reports from the SEC advisor info site, but schedule it and dynamically update it every day. So let's get going. So what I'm going to do is I noticed here that the URL does have the date in it. So if I right click this and copy link address and paste this in here, you'll see that the date is inside of this file. There's a couple other complications. It is compressed, so we do need to be able to read a compressed file, and it's also in an XML format. So we need to figure out the schema of the XML and then correlate that to a database schema in a table. So we have to create that table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this link. I'm going to go over to ChatGPT. I'm not going to start programming or anything. We're going to talk to the AI and see what it could build for us. So we're going to describe here. We are trying to build a database of FINRA advisors that are in the SEC database. This database is updated daily and is posted to the address below. Notice how the URL contains the date in the following format within the file name. So 01/12/2020. So I just stopped my video by accident, so I just started it back up. How the URL contains the data in the following format within the file name and is compressed. We want to create a program that will get the current date and download the document to the local file system. That's it. So let's start there. We want to be able to just get the data and put it to disk. Once we have it on disk, we're going to go ahead and try to decompress it. Actually, we could probably try to do that in this process too. We then want to decompress the file. Now, once we decompress the file, then we're going to go ahead and look at the format of the file and determine what type of database schema we need to create. That'll be a one-time thing because we figure out the schema. I'm assuming that the schema doesn't change. It may infrequently, but it probably doesn't change too often. So let's go ahead. I'm going to say write this in Python. Doesn't really matter, but we'll write it in Python for now because I know the AI does a pretty good job of writing Python. So let's see how this does. Oops. ChatGPT is taking the weekend off here. Okay, so let's take a look at the program. So it creates a initial base URL, grabs the current date and time, formats it with the current date. Beautiful. That looks like it's going to work. It creates a string for the file names. Then it goes ahead and tries to download it. Later, baby.
I gotta pick up the grocery.
This is kind of cool. This is a cool method. It'll raise an error, which is why we have it in a try catch routine. It'll try to download the file. It'll report that it's downloaded. Now it's going to try to decompress it. So it's using this gzip library, which looks like it's core to Python, which is awesome. Another reason why we like to use a language that has a rich standard library. libc, baby. And yeah, this should work. So let's go ahead and copy this. Now I'm going to go over to my file system here, and I'm going to go ahead and just go into I'm going to make a new directory here and say FINRA extract. And we'll create a FINRA extract. And now I don't want to be in this virtual environment anymore, so I'm going to exit out of this actually and go into a new tab. Let's go to AI and agents, and it was FINRA. All right, so this is I'm going to create a virtual environment in Python. This just isolates all the dependencies that we create into this one project. It's just a good way to kind of keep your stuff isolated and you don't like muck up your global packages in Python. So all I'm going to do here is go Python-m virtual environment. We're going to name the virtual environment EVM. Boom. Now all we need to do is activate the virtual environment. Now we're inside of a virtual environment, which is nice. So when we do pip installs, like the package manager installs, it puts all dependencies local to this, which is nice. So let's go ahead and start up our editor. We're going to use Cursor, which is the AI editor, and I'm going to go ahead and create a file here. We'll call it just main, or let's call it extract.py, and I'm going to go ahead and put this program in here. So it looks like we do have the request is not base package, and I wonder if the AI told us that. So let's see. It didn't. So that's interesting. So it's complaining here that we don't have the request package. So what I'll do is I'll go into our here, and this is why we have a virtual environment, because we could just go and download pip install requests, and now that's installed locally to this virtual environment. Now it shouldn't complain. There we go. So now what we should be able to do is just simply run this using the Python command, Python 3, and what do we call it, extract.py, and boom, now we have an uncompressed, if we go ahead and look at this, boom, there's all the data. Very cool. So now what we want to do is we want to figure out what type of database schema we should create. So what I want to do is, this XML is just like HTML. It's just a hierarchical format. So every single one of these is a firm. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab one of these firms. So let's go ahead and grab from firm to firm here. And you know what? I'm going to grab more than one just in case. So let's go ahead. Let's go up a bit. Let's go ahead and grab like a couple of firms. All right, I'll grab a little sample of firms here. Let's go back to the AI. Okay, great. Now we have the file in a separate, keeping everything as compartmentalized and isolated as possible. In a separate program, we want to, well, actually, let's just create a database schema based on the XML in the document. Below is an example of some firms that are in the XML file. Can you create a SQL schema that will store this data? Now, we don't have to store the data in a tabular format. You know, XML file format is actually just fine for being able to do processing and stuff. We could just use the XML file to do some of our processing, but putting it into a table allows us to, I think, easily integrate with other tools. Like we could essentially put this in a Notion database, you know, a Postgres database, MySQL database, whatever, and then those systems do a pretty good job integrating with other things, as opposed to constantly processing this XML file ourselves. So I'm going to paste this in here, and let's see what it comes up with. Okay, awesome. So it's actually creating a non-normalized database, which is kind of interesting because it's not just a single table. It's creating a full schema of tables. So not only that's pretty cool. So interesting. So now we have firms. And then the firms have a main address, and we have a firm ID that links up to the firm. Then we have notice filed states. So I guess these are the states that they filed in. Again, it has a state ID, so we actually have it got a little verbose with its normalization, which is fine. I guess we could try it. Has a list of web addresses, form info. So I guess this is the form that they were filing. So I guess each one of these is the form they filed. So it's not just a collection of actual contact information and entity information. This is really, this is happening as they file stuff. So interesting. So we can have this, I guess a firm can be in here multiple times, say on January 1st when they file their 10K, and then on March 31st when they file their other 10K or 10Q or whatever, it'll come up again. Okay. And then employees, here we go. Here's where we can have total employees, other employee data. I don't see that it actually has any, I guess, phone number and fax number, but no email stuff. So that's where we can start to enrich this. So awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And you know what? I don't want to have to do anything with the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to store this in a SQLite database. SQLite is just a single file database that we can run locally, and it's super easy to work with. Once we get the data working the way we want it, we can put it into a larger DBMS. But for now, let's get into a SQLite. So can you write a small Python script that will create a SQLite database and initialize the schema you outlined. So now instead of just copy and pasting this and going into a DBMS and doing it, I want it to just do it for us. So this is going to create a script that'll go ahead and build that out for us. Let's see how this works. All right, awesome. So now we have the schema just in a string, and we're calling the database file FINRA firms. Again, SQLite is part of the standard library in Python. Great. In other environments, we'd have to bring in a dependency, and that just gets annoying. So initialize database, SQLite connect to it. Super simple. Just going to go ahead and pass in. So boom, let's copy that. Let's go into our editor, and let's go ahead and say init db.py. And now all this is going to do, once we run it, is going to go ahead and initialize that database. So now what we could do is we can go ahead and run init.
They have my sign. No, they don't.
And then boom. Now we should have a FINRA database firms.db. Now that's a database file that has this exact structure in it. Excellent. Now, last step is we want to now write a program that is going to iterate over every single firm and populate this data. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and great. Now the last step here is to create a program that will iterate over every firm in the database in the XML file and populate this schema. Now we want to give it an example of the full structure of the XML, because one thing I did not tell the program is some of these parent pieces. So what I want to do is I want to copy from the top, because it needs to know this to be able to path down to the actual firm. So I'm going to go ahead and this is a large file, so I'm not going to go ahead and grab it all. So I'm going to go here, grab like 2 firms. Here is the full layout of the XML. Now, what I do need to do here is I want to close this now. See, so we went down to firm, and I want to close this all the way at the bottom. It's going to contain basically the closing elements that this, right? So we take these 2, put this here, and now it's closed. So now we should be able to get a program that will populate a database. Now it's interesting because I really haven't written a line of code yet, right? I just kind of been prompting stuff. I guess there is a good amount of embedded knowledge that I'm expressing here, but yeah, from my perspective, this is so much more flexible than using some of these canned no-code solutions. But let's see. So, all right, so now, oh, what happened? Nope, it like went away. Oh, well, that's weird. Let's go ahead and rerun that. Want that. Stop. Could see something went wrong. Let's go ahead and run that again. I was just bigging you up, AI. Don't. So xml.etree.elementtree at et. I don't know if that's base package. Let's see. Well, parsing XML is pretty straightforward. It's just a tree. So let's see if this does this correctly. So it's defining a function called parse and populate. It's going ahead and connecting to our database. It's creating a cursor, which is basically just something that could iterate through a database. And then we're going and looping through all the firms. We're getting all of these fields. The interesting part here is that the database it designed is normalized, which means it's multiple tables, which does make it a little bit more complicated to program against, because you have to have foreign keys and primary keys and all that jazz. So it has to do a little bit more SQL than just like a single insert, right? Like it looks like it's got to keep track of the firm ID. So it must get the firm ID. Yeah, okay. last write. That's interesting. I've never seen that, so that's cool. It gets the firm ID here, and then, okay, so let's see. Now, this is probably going to be a big operation because I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it populate DB. So we have a init DB and populate DB. Go ahead and put that in there. And now it's going to go ahead and it really boils down to this one function. Parse and populate. We input the XML file and the database we want to populate. And let's go ahead and run this. So let's see, Python 3 populate DB. And this should, let's see, table web addresses has no column named web address. Ah, so it didn't remember its schema that well. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to go right to here and say, got this error. Looks like you didn't specify the right field names. Oh, look at that. It updated the initialization piece and I like this, that it put in the drop table, so we can go ahead and rerun this. So we could go here in the initdb, paste this in here, now run this. That'll reinitialize the database and now populate the DB, and let's see how this works. Look at that, it didn't crash. All right, cool. So now, great. Now what we want to do is, now let's see the data in the database. Now MySQL SQLite has a CLI tool, which I think is just, I could just say, I think I have installed SQLite, and then I can go into FINRA firms. Yeah, and then like this has like a slightly different syntax than like a larger DBMS. Okay, so let's see. What is the SQLite command to show the schema? Is it just show tables? So let's see. Yeah, so yeah, it has like this whole like dot syntax. So dot schema firms.
What happened?
There we go, cool. So now if we wanted to read data from it, we could just do dot schema. So dot schema, we could see our entire database. And then, you know, what we could do is, could I just do this? Select all from firms. Boom. Here we go. We have all these in here. Now, I wonder in the form info, I want to select all from form info. It just has a date. Like, I don't know if there's much information in here. So this is interesting. So we got the data in a database. Now, what we could do with this is we can now take this SQLite database and connect it to an agent, and that agent can then, we can ask questions about the information in this database. So maybe that's the next step, but I just wanted to go ahead and illustrate how to create just a basic data extractor using Python and just AI to do this. And we can essentially now schedule this extract py. Actually, let's take it one step further before we end this, even though this is way too long and probably no one's going to watch this, but whatever. Let's go ahead and put this all together into a program that we can schedule daily to update our database with new firms in the list. I'm going to be super vague with this. Being in we provided all this context, I'm just going to leave it at that and see how bad this does. Oh, interesting. It just puts it into one program. I'd rather it coordinate this with the files we already have. So what I'll do is, because the AI doesn't know how I just structured the file system, right? So it's doing this exactly how I asked it to do it. It's putting it all together into one program, which should just be fine. We could do it like that. But what I think I'd like to do better is I'm gonna use the tree command here. Tree. I don't have the tree command? Oh, I'm in Z8. Really? Oh, I guess I don't. Oops, not that. So this is a useful command to be able to just visualize the hierarchy of a file system. And I found this useful to feed into AIs because you could tell it exactly how your project is laid out. But this is cool too, this works. So we define a main function that goes, it downloads the daily XML, initializes the DB. So this is gonna reinitialize the database every day, parse and populate, and OS and remove. So I guess the next step here is we wouldn't wanna like completely delete the data every day. Like this right here is gonna delete the data every day and then repopulate it. Unless we feed this into another process that does like, you know, diffs and stuff like that, like who's new and stuff like that. This is just going to create a new updated database and keep it fresh, which is fine for now. I mean, this is a ton of data. Let's see if we can do anything with it. So I'm going to copy this. And it did download tree. So let's see if I do tree now, it gives you this. And I only want to go, this is too many levels. I just want to go using the tree command, how can I just go one level? Easy peasy. So tree 1. There we go. So now this is, I don't need to copy the virtual environment. So I'm going to say this is the structure of our project. Can you put this all together using the files that contain the functions you wrote? So now it knows the structure of our project, and I want to be able to we could just use the consolidated version above, but keep it isolated. This, like if we had different people working on different things, you can, you know, work on it independently without stepping on everyone's toes. Oh, it's actually rewriting everything. We don't want it to do that, but whatever. Let it do its thing.
She better be like on her way home, because if she hasn't even done any of her pickups yet, I'm gonna crash out. She's slowing down. No! No, turn! No!
Okay, this is the piece that we care about. So this is going to bring everything together.
She's on her way home.
Beautiful. Boom. So now we go here and we create a main.py.
Rose roaming?
I don't think we need the .py. Yeah, I think that's all we need. So this should do everything. Now let's see if this will work, because this is going to go ahead and override this file. Well, you know what? Let me do this, because every day we're going to have a different. So I'm going to remove the IA files, and now let's go ahead and put it all together. Download daily XML from extract. Oh, because some of these, so we do have to use the code that this did, because we don't have them encapsulated in functions. So let's go ahead and do that. So extract, we'll go ahead, because it's not encapsulated in a function here. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, which is fine. Actually, I like this version better. So we have a nice little function here to extract. Initialize the database. This one should actually be okay already, but we don't need it to call it. So now it doesn't call it. Python does have a cool little feature where you can put like if you're calling it directly, where you can say like, if it's the main call that. So like running these files now directly won't actually do anything. So now populate database. And then bringing it all together. All right, let's see.
Stop.
Boom, baby. Oh, it's amazing. So now let's go ahead and light into this schema. right? And now we'll say select all from, let's go web addresses. Let's see what's in web addresses. And let's just limit 10. Boom. Look at that. And we have some, so we can now, look at these, some of these guys put their LinkedIn right into this. So like if we go here, boom. Pretty powerful shit. Awesome. All right. I'm going to cut it. Peace.